The year was 1969, and the tension of Le Mans hung thick in the air. On the final lap, Jackie Ickx sat hunched low over the steering wheel, his Ford GT40 chasing down a Porsche with nothing but raw determination and a screaming engine at nearly 220 miles per hour. The sound that tore across the track wasn't born in Detroit's factories. It came from a secret collaboration that pushed the limits of engineering. This machine wasn't just powerful, it was relentless, earning whispers that it could cheat death itself. Yet behind the roar and the glory, the truth about Dan Gurney and his revolutionary Westlake engine was far more complex, darker, more ingenious, and more dangerous than the world realized. What if this creation carried a hidden secret, one so radical it could alter racing history, and someone wanted it buried? The marriage of the Eagle Westlake engine and the iconic Ford GT40 chassis was more than just a pairing. It was the birth of a weapon built to dominate endurance racing. Between 1968 and 1969, the motorsport world witnessed an epic clash of titans, engineers battling with ideas, corporations fighting for pride, and drivers risking everything in pursuit of immortality. It was fire meeting steel, the spark and the forge, a duel of innovation and ambition played out on the world's most unforgiving stage. By the mid-1960s, racing was no longer just about speed, it had become a war. Ford had declared open combat on Ferrari, unleashing their monstrous 7.0-liter GT40s, machines that were blunt hammers designed to smash through the Italian Marquis' dominance. Fans saw raw horsepower and brute strength, but Dan Gurney, tall, calm, and calculating behind the wheel, saw something else. He knew that muscle could win battles, but endurance required more than sheer force. Le Mans wasn't about surviving a sprint, it was about mastering efficiency, reliability, and precision. Gurney envisioned an engine that could breathe differently, lighter and smarter, capable of lasting a full 24 hours of punishment. His sketches imagined the impossible: aluminum alloy heads replacing Ford's heavy cast iron, inlet ports angled with surgical precision for better airflow, and heart-shaped combustion chambers designed to squeeze every ounce of energy from the fuel. On paper, it was nothing less than a revolution. The only question was who could help him turn this vision into steel and fire. Gurney's search led him across the Atlantic to the quiet English town of Rye. There, hidden away from the glamour of racing circuits, worked Harry Weslake, a man with an almost mystical reputation for airflow design. Westlake had already left his fingerprints on some of the greatest British machines, and his small workshop smelled of oil, ambition, and innovation. When Gurney spread his sketches across the table, Westlake studied them carefully, tracing each line like it was a blueprint to buried treasure. Gurney had the instincts of a driver. Westlake had the geometry of airflow burned into his very bones. Between them, an alliance was forged that would soon give birth to an engine unlike anything the racing world had ever seen: the Gurney Weslake. On paper, it was simply an engine, but on the track, it was a weapon, a declaration that Ford wasn't done yet. The GT40 Mark I, once seen as outdated compared to the heavier Mark II and Mark IV machines, became the unlikely hero. Under John Wyer's JW Automotive team, and with the iconic Gulf oil colors draped over its body, the Mark I was transformed. Wyer wasn't aiming to match brute strength anymore. He was playing a smarter game. The FIA's sudden 5.0-liter restriction had thrown Ferrari and Porsche into chaos, leaving them scrambling. Wyer's crew quietly slipped the Gurney Weslake V8 into the leaner Mark I chassis. The result was a lighter, more agile car that could breathe like no other. Efficient, durable, and devastatingly quick. It wasn't racing, it was strategy played out at 200 miles an hour. When the Gulf GT40s fired up for the 1968 Le Mans test runs, the sound was sharper, cleaner, a metallic edge that carried both menace and endurance. Rivals dismissed the Mark I as an old warhorse, but Wyer knew it had become a scalpel in a field of sledgehammers. Endurance racing wasn't only about speed, it was about surviving the night without the engine breaking apart. The Gurney Weslake was built for exactly that. June 1968, Circuit de la Sarthe. The air was heavy with summer clouds, and the atmosphere was tense. This was the first Le Mans under the new rules, and every manufacturer had something to prove. The Gulf GT40, chassis P1075, driven by Pedro Rodriguez and Lucien Bianchi, slipped through the field with relentless precision. Hour after hour, the V8 kept its note, steady, strong, and clean, while others screamed and faltered. Through the long night and into the morning, the GT40 didn't stumble. By the end, Ford had claimed victory once more, this time with half the displacement the FIA thought would slow them down. The Gurney Weslake had turned rule changes into an advantage, etching its legend into history. But 1969 would push it further. By then, the writing was on the wall. This would be the GT40's last chance before new prototypes and new rules swept the old guard aside. Porsche arrived with the terrifying 917. Ferrari sharpened its own arsenal, and the Gulf GT40s were suddenly outnumbered and outgunned. Mechanics described working on the Weslake heads as walking on eggshells with a hammer. One mistake, and the fragile alloy could be ruined. Yet the team pressed on. June 14, 1969. Jackie Ickx made his silent protest against the dangerous Le Mans start by walking calmly to his car, strapping in, and setting off dead last. What seemed like the end before it began turned into one of the greatest comebacks in motorsport history. Alongside Jackie Oliver, Ickx clawed his way through the field, enduring rain, heat, and mechanical attrition. As dawn broke, only Hans Hermann's Porsche 908 remained in their way. The final laps became a duel for the ages. On the very last lap, into the final corner, Ickx braked impossibly late. The GT40's tires screamed, the Westlake roared, and P1075 crossed the line first by mere seconds. Back-to-back Le Mans wins with the same car, the same engine. Immortality was sealed. But every legend has its limits. The Westlake heads were fragile and costly. Ford's interest in endurance racing was fading, and the world was already shifting towards new designs, new technologies, and factory-backed dominance. The Gurney Westlake's reign lasted only 2 years, but for that brief window, it was untouchable, a perfect balance of American muscle and British engineering finesse. For those who drove it, the memories never faded. Rodriguez once said, "This engine doesn't scream, it sings." Jackie Ickx trusted it with his life, knowing that in the 23rd hour when rivals faltered, it would still be there, steady and relentless. Mechanics remembered the stress of handling them, but also the pride of knowing they were part of something rare. Today, the surviving heads are scattered between collectors and museums, each one treated like a holy relic of racing history. And then, the whispers. Some say Gurney sketched designs for a next-generation Westlake head, more efficient, lighter, with wild new port shapes, but the drawings vanished. Others insist modern builders have tried to resurrect the design with modern alloys and CNC machining. Rumors claimed one has even run in secret, its exhaust note so savage it rattled windows miles away. Whether truth or myth, the Gurney Weslake remains one of racing's great enigmas. It wasn't just an engine. It was a philosophy, a marriage of brute force and precision, built in defiance of expectations. It conquered Le Mans not by overwhelming power, but by balance, resilience, and vision. For 2 unforgettable years, it silenced Porsche, humbled Ferrari, and gave the GT40 its last and greatest stand. And perhaps somewhere, its final chapter has yet to be written.